Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Extraordinary. It's a movie with Will Forte. We're going to talk about it here in a second. First up, joining me, special guest tonight. Please welcome Sophie to the show.
Oh, hey guys, it's good to be back.
Very good to have you here. Next up on the show, from Chicago, Illinois. He likes to drink. It's kind of his thing. Please welcome Joe.
Meals, chicas.
Something, felicitations. Next up on the show, from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
I don't know how to follow that.
No, you can't. Don't even try. And last up tonight, from Manhattan, New York City, also somewhere else now. He's in a secret bunker because he's hiding from the world. Please welcome John Schnars.
Hello, Eric.
John, before we get into it, can I get a quick clear hair update, please, on your beard?
What do you think?
Have you, wait,
tell me.
Please tell me when the last time you shaved was.
I think it was before the last time we recorded. So this is
Sophie, can I get
7 full days.
Sophie, can I get a ruling on the pattern in which John's beard grows in?
Here's the thing. The way that Skype looks on my computer, the only video I can see is Eric's. I can't see John's video, but I'm still going to say the pattern is upsetting, and I can't even see it.
It's weird because like the very like tip of the chin now seems like there's nothing there and it's like growing around. Like
That's actually just blonde.
honestly, I feel like I need to file like a Me Too complaint against your chin.
It's very, his chin, now that I'm really staring at his face in a way that surprisingly I never have before, his chin it's an aggressive chin, John, if I do say so.
Yeah, it's like in 3D on Skype tonight.
It's all the hair. It's
very,
the extra hair. It's really accentuating it.
It's very,
it's definitely a hate crime.
What's the neighbor's name on Family Guy? It's like that chin.
Oh, come
Quagmire?
on.
Quagmire?
Giggity.
Never been accused of having a strong chin.
All right, guys. We're here tonight to talk about Extraordinary. I'm hoping that somebody knows something about this movie because it seems really interesting. It's like an Australian film, but Irish.
It's Irish.
But Will Forte's in it. It's a whole thing. It's on demand right now. It's like this interesting little indie horror comedy. Before we do that, Mr. Joe,
What's up, man?
even I'm drinking more now, which is how I know that it's time to drink. Yeah, so please let us know what we're please let us
really letting you hang with that one.
let us know what we're drinking tonight, Joe.
That was the saddest transition.
Listen, that was Joe's fault.
Beer guts.
Hey, beer guts. It's a thing we do. So yeah, I've also been drinking a lot more, Eric. Like up until the quarantines, I was like maybe on the weekends, but even then, like I was trying to cut back. Definitely not beer, but I've been hitting it hard since then. And the beer we're drinking tonight, Extraordinary, a fine little ditty from over in Ireland. How do I explain? So the beer I picked is from Roaring Table Brewing up in Lake Zurich, Illinois, not too far from me. And the beer I picked is Who Rescued Who.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah. So it's a New England IPA. The reason I picked this, I was kind of struggling a bit, but the movie kind of focuses around a young lady who is a driving instructor, and they kind of go out of their way to show that she's in a little bit of a rut, and she's kind of going through life and the motions and whatnot. And then she meets a gentleman who she needs to help him and her daughter. But at the end of the day, John, who rescued who in this scenario?
Who made?
Do you know?
Who made who?
Hopefully we'll unpack that over the next.
Yeah.
I
don't want to give too much away. So it's a New England IPA, which I've done a gaggle of these about. They usually have like a hazy, kind of cloudy look about them. Very smooth and creamy. A lot of breweries are putting them out. I'm a huge fan. Comes in at about 5.4% alcohol, so not super high. The nice thing about this one is they actually put this beer out, and it's not a year round, but they put it out about once or twice a year. And for every pint and crowler and growler you get, they donate to a local animal shelter. So it was
Wow.
a super great cause. And you guys probably haven't heard of Roaring Table. They're very small. They just started distributing a little bit here, but
Joe,
great.
Joe,
Yeah.
that was the most hipstery thing you've ever said.
Yeah, but my point is,
You wouldn't have heard of it. Don't worry
you
about
you
it.
know you wouldn't have heard of it.
they're such great people, and the owners are super nice. And you guys are seeing this a lot now that businesses are closed. They're doing like curbside pickup and just kind of trying to get by because they've obviously put like their life work into this place. And most of you probably have a brewery like that near you, so definitely if you can like support them in any way, like gift cards or doing beer pickups from them, because they definitely need it right now. Because I mean, there's a lot of stories of different breweries closing. We actually just found out that the bar that we had the Spooktoberfest last year, Crown Liquors, unfortunately closed or will not be reopening when
know.
things get back to normal.
Brutal.
Yeah, it real bummer, because those guys were super nice, and Elisa, who helped set us up there, posted something, and they're actually doing a GoFundMe for the staff there. If you go on our Twitter, you can find a link to there. But if you can help them out and help out your local breweries too, or bars, or any way you can. So
That's on our Twitter.
yes, yeah.
That's for
We're
people.
asking people to drink here. It's not, a long putt,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
For people who
Exactly.
don't know, it's at BG Horror, so you can follow us. Yes. All right, Joe. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
It is time,
Thank you.
guys. Let's take a quick break and review Extraordinary.
This is it, Senator. Your big break in TV. About the prime time. Main feature.
John Schnars,
Eric,
how's all this going for you, buddy?
we've had 2 birthdays in the last 4 days.
Oh.
So
Bummer.
a second birthday and a 4th birthday.
Well, you're actually
You
with some
know-
of your family, so.
Yeah, and my parents came down over the weekend, so we violated all norms. We threw caution to the wind. Saw my folks. It was good. I mean, the 2-year-old, she doesn't know any better, really. I mean, she's got like her brother and sister here. We had a good time. The 4-year-old, I feel a little bad for, but a bunch of her classmates like sent videos and stuff. It was good.
So
It
when
was fun. We had a
there's
good
an
time.
outbreak, we know who to blame, basically. It's your parents.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. When there's an outbreak in good old Media, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Or localized entirely in this vicinity.
John,
Mm-hmm.
please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, ectoplasm. Ectoplasm.
There is
Ecto-
no way you didn't do this for like Ghostbusters or something.
Go ahead and check the list, my friend, because I did and I did not do it. Ectoplasm comes to us from biology. It's a dated biology term. The more viscous, clear outer layer of the cytoplasm in amoeboid cells.
I don't like it when you say viscous or amoeboid.
Well,
No, yeah,
here
I
we
could
are.
do without that.
It has a second definition, luckily. A supernatural viscous, which I'm sure you'd like, substance that is supposed to exude from the body of a medium during a spiritualistic trance and form the material for the manifestation of spirits.
Huh. See, I had never heard that aspect of it of coming out of a medium, and that's like this whole movie's about that.
It's a good chunk of the movie, yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And actually, fun fact, if you want to read about that basis of ectoplasm, our very own Cece wrote an article about the history of ectoplasm in the most recent Grimm and talks about that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Damn! There we go. Crossover.
Hot juices.
Ectoplasm comes to us from the Greek ektos, meaning outside, and plasma, meaning something formed or molded.
Just makes me think of the dancing toaster in Ghostbusters too.
I was thinking of Ecto Cooler.
Give me
No, I think
higher.
in Ghostbusters they sort of explain, like, I mean, certainly in Ghostbusters 2, you get the whole Statue of Liberty walk in
What a
with the
movie.
ectoplasm. I mean, they,
There are a few scenes, John, in movie history that give me
Mm-hmm.
goosebumps. like that Statue of Liberty scene in Ghostbusters 2.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
they're really up
That's pretty
against
good.
it. They're really up against it. It's like everybody's feeling down and they can't beat Vigo the Carpathian. And then they have their weird ectoplasm guns that they shoot inside of the Statue of Liberty, which they then control her with like a NES Advantage or something.
Yeah,
Yep.
And
the
the
big D.
music's playing, you lifted me higher, and it's like waterworks, John, every time.
It's very powerful. Niagara
really
Falls,
is.
I think, is the term you're looking for.
I'm like, I sound facetious. I'm not being facetious right now.
I hear you because I've been there.
So anyway,
Been there myself.
who hasn't?
So, yeah.
Ectoplasm. Thank you, John. I don't like the
Sure.
word viscous normally, let alone when it's coming out of that beard.
Mhm.
You know, I get it, and too bad.
John,
And you're welcome.
John, I'm gonna go ahead and ask you to synopsize now and hope that you looked up a little information about this movie along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I had read a little teensy bit about this movie. There's not a ton, right? So,
And if you don't
this
know it,
is
then
a-
I'm guessing by Sophie's facial expressions that she can come in and embarrass you.
Oh well, so I mean, yeah. Sophie, please feel free to keep me in line here. But Extraordinary, it's I believe either the directorial debut or sort of like second film from a duo named Mike Ahern and Enda Lauchman.
Oh,
I don't know.
oh, that guy.
Lauchman? Yeah. His first name is Enda. Enda. I've never seen that before. So, but it is a guy. I looked it up. So these two guys, it's definitely an indie sort of horror comedy thing. It is Irish. It is set in Ireland. I don't the exact town. I do not have in front of me. It made sort of the rounds in the festival circuit. I believe debuted at South by Southwest last year. It did get a theatrical release here, like March 10th or something like that. So, rough time to be hitting the old theaters. But it's here. It's streaming now. Sophie mentioned or shared with us that there's a couple places that are using this as one of those films where you can support a theater by sort of renting it through them. And it stars Maeve Higgins, Will Forte, as Eric mentioned, a woman named Claudia O'Doherty, who I think is the woman from the show Love.
She's
Eric,
on.
that you're obsessed with?
She plays Jillian Jacobs. Is that her name? She plays her roommate on that Netflix show Love with Paul Rust. So if you listen to that In Voorhees We Trust podcast, John, and Paul Rust is also on that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and the other guy, Barry Ward, he plays the love interest or the sort of other main character, Martin. But yeah, I mean, it's there's no one. I think Maeve Higgins is probably the only person that folks might be aware of. She's a comic, an Irish comic. She's done work and been in some other stuff, and then obviously Will Forte. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the basic outline here is that Maeve Higgins plays a medium, but she's sort of given up on it since her early childhood. She used to work with her father, who is a famous sort of television medium type guy, Vincent Dooley. So she's Rose Dooley, and instead of using her talents, and talents is actually sort of what they call them, she is a driving instructor. But people kind of consistently call her, wanting her help with ghost type things. And one of those leads her to Martin, whose wife is essentially sort of a domestic abusing ghost. I don't know, is that fair?
Sure.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's played for laughs, but and so his wife is passed, and he's living with his teenage daughter. We meet Will Forte. Will Forte is a one-hit wonder musician. His song "Cosmic Woman," kind of an earworm. Just gonna put that out there. You can look that up. Cosmic Woman. But he's been living off of those royalties, and essentially bought a castle in Ireland, which he jokes was for the tax benefits. But he has now found a satanic book or some sort of satanic manual, and is using a spell to try to regain his sort of musical prowess and fame and fortune. He eventually tries to kidnap Martin's teenage daughter who is believed to be a virgin. And that is sort of where Maeve Higgins decides she has to deploy her talents for good.
Whew. I feel like I sat through
Eric?
the movie again, John.
Well, you know,
Good
there's a
Lord.
lot of setup here. But
Oh.
there you go. There you have it.
Sophie, why don't you kick us off? What'd you think?
Oh my goodness. I love this movie. So, full disclosure, I've seen this movie 3 times now, and 2 of those were in the last 3 days. This was screening at Panic Fest here in Kansas City at my favorite indie theater, and our very own Andy was in town for Panic Fest. So, Andy and my boyfriend and I went to see Extraordinary. It was the last movie sort of the weekend that we went to see. And I remember wanting so much for it to be good because I love Will Forte, but being really worried that it was going to be a movie that had hung too much of its hopes on Will Forte's appearance and just wasn't going to work as a movie. And I was very pleasantly surprised. I think Andy and Jeremy and I all walked out feeling like that movie was just very fun. This will not be any of your experiences because of the current situation, but really fun to watch in a crowd. Like, we were in a full theater, and
Well, rub it in,
you
Sophie.
could just feel how happy and excited everybody was to watch it. And a lot of those laugh lines like got really big laughs, which was fun. But I think this movie does a great job of sort of walking a line where some of the horror stuff and gore is, I think John talked about this over email, sort of like over a line that normies might be uncomfortable with, but a lot of the comedy and sort of the emotional heart of the story is all stuff that is very accessible to anyone. And so I found this to be a movie that I could, for the most part, show to folks that are horror fans or non-horror fans and get a pretty similar result. I think all the performances are great. I had not seen Maeve Higgins in anything before, but I think her performance as Rose is spectacular, and I want to see her in everything from now on. She was so funny. Her comedic timing was really great. And I think this movie had a phenomenal, like, shock ending that was really wonderful and made everyone in the theater kind of like burst out laughing and applauding. So yeah, I thought this movie was great. I'm a very big fan.
Joe.
Oof.
No, Joe.
So I haven't really. I was busy today, so I didn't really chime in over email. But I think I'm probably the least positive on this one. I don't know, and it could just be the movies we've watched recently have been a little different from this. But like, I just could not get into it. Like, to the point where like I actually found it to be pretty boring. About like halfway through. I think I agree that Maeve is great in this. Like, I really liked her character. I thought or Rose, I guess, is the character. I liked her and Martin together. Will Forte, I actually did not really give a shit about in this. Like, I feel like it was a little bit of like, I could have done with just like 2 minutes of him and then like tossed him away because it was just kind of the same stuff over and over again. But I think the thing that I struggled with most is it didn't feel like there was a ton of tension with the whole theme of this. So I don't know, John, you got into it, but like the whole thing focuses around them trying to save Martin's daughter from being sacrificed as a virgin. But like, it never seems like they're really like urgent about making this happen at any point. Like, to the point where the whole idea is that they have to collect what, like 6
It's
ectoplasm?
kind of the vibe of the movie, though. You know, it's like I don't know. I feel like it's part of it, part of the thing.
But like, it's his daughter. Like, does he not really give a shit about her? like
He
they have.
does, Joe.
Joe, you can't wake a
This is
sleeping or whatever sleeping.
Yeah, you
possessed
can't wake her
person.
up.
They have this whole task that they need to do, but like they do it one night and then the next day they're like, well, we'll get back together later because I have work the next day. Like, it was just like, well, all right, so I guess you guys will get around to it. I don't know, like it just kind of moved along for me. And again, like, it could have just been the headspace I was in at the time, but like I want to say about like 30-40 minutes in, I leaned over to Leslie like, is this just like super boring or is it me? For what it's worth, she enjoyed it. Like, it's not Oscar worthy.
Can you just get her into the room and maybe
Joe,
we could have a
Joe,
better
it sounds
conversation?
like maybe you were having an Eric kind of a day.
I don't know, maybe. Like, I don't know. I was in a decent mood. I literally, I told her, like, maybe you should join the show. And she's like, yeah, but, like, I thought it was fine. So,
Right, yeah.
Joe, is it possible that you fell asleep during the part where like Rose says she can't help him because she's too worried she's gonna hurt somebody, and he like freaked out and screams at her because he would rather die than lose his daughter? Were you just like asleep for that part?
you
I'm just
mean,
curious.
like, the, like, 48 hours after
Wow.
they knew what they had to do and they finally got around to it?
Sophie,
Yeah,
Sophie,
I was
fire,
awake during that.
Sophie, fire and shots. Listen, Sophie, Joe survived Cece, so if you're gonna try to take him out, you're gonna have
Yeah.
to get a little more savage than that.
No.
Listen, I don't know that I can ever match Cece's sass level. It's like one of my favorite things in the universe. I can only aspire to do my best.
I'm
Casey,
just saying, like, having two daughters, if there was something where, like, I had to complete a task to save their lives, I would probably, like, get on that, like, first thing in the morning rather than, like, waiting till after dinner.
Yeah, but does it matter which daughter it is?
Casey,
No.
Casey,
No, Casey, it doesn't.
Casey,
The fuck?
Casey.
To make Joe feel a little bit better, this is the second time I've seen this movie. The first time around, I kind of felt like Joe did after coming out of it. It felt a little too dry, a little slow, and I probably wasn't sure what I was expecting when I went in, and it was a little drier than what I expected. Having watched it again this time for tonight's episode, and I ended up liking it a lot, and it improved on me a lot on the second viewing. The dry humor, once you know to watch for it, is a lot more easy to pick up on, or it stood out a lot more to me, I should say. And it was great. There's a lot of little subtle jokes in there. I thought, like, when the dad, Martin, played by Barry Ward, when he was being possessed, was downright hilarious when his acting would change. It was
Yeah, when
great
he was like channeling people.
Yeah. So, all in all, I was a fan.
John.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say I think I understand the movie's sort of like a mumblecore rom-com type thing. It's very much that dry, we shouldn't say British because the Irish folk will probably get upset, but it has that same sort of feel of a dry British black comedy.
Which,
This
to be
is
fair,
actually,
like, and sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Like, I really enjoy that usually. Like,
No,
it's
See,
got
that's
nothing to
what's
do with
funny
that.
is I usually don't, and I really enjoyed this. So we're all over
Yeah.
the place.
the two of
I
you,
thought
yeah.
you would be the one that would be on my side on this one, Eric. I'll be honest.
Oh, there is almost nothing that I've railed about more on the internet than about how much I hate the British Office.
Yeah,
So I was
no,
going into
I'm
this.
aware.
I was going into this fully being like, I'm gonna hate this, and I had
this
like
has
the
like-
Maybe
opposite.
that's like my expectations were too high. Like, I was pretty excited to watch this, so maybe that's
This has
it's-
like it has a sweet sort of innocent core to it.
Yeah.
And I think, the humor. So I was trying to think about this because it's not a genre spoof in the way. I mean, it's not entirely a genre spoof. Like a lot of the comedy is rom-com comedy and not sort of like horror comedy. Now that said, it does fall into a couple of jokes that it kind of like hits again and again. So the ectoplasm thing, I love the ectoplasm setup. So essentially, the Rose, when she is channeling these ghosts, she needs someone to channel them into, and the Martin becomes that person for the 8 ghosts they have to channel. And the first time they do it is the first time you see him sort of vomit up the ectoplasm, and that just got me really good. And then they just kind of keep coming back to it again and again, and it worked for me every time. So I don't know. I mean, the movie gets more and more into the sort of horror stuff as it goes along, and I could see, like, especially in the beginning, it's sleepy. It's like a sleepy little movie for a good chunk there.
So I really enjoyed it, and actually, it does take you a minute. Like, it took me a minute to be like, oh, we're telling jokes now, because like that's if you're not really familiar with this kind of like dry British humor, it is like you gotta be paying attention. Like, you not only do you have to be like paying attention really closely, but like you gotta have your eyes trained on the screen. And this is like one of my favorite things about this movie is that it's weirdly like dense with jokes. And when I say jokes, I mean there's visual gags. There's like awkward interactions that are really funny. On top of just the regular scripted movie jokes. And I went into it thinking like, oh, when does Will Forte show up? And 5 minutes in, I'm like, I stopped caring because this lead actress is fucking hilarious. She is
Oh yeah.
she really blew me
Yeah.
away because not only is she funny, but she's like layered. It's like she's funny in delivering these really subtle little jokes, like Sophie said, with great comedic timing. She's also got all this heart to her, and you sort of I enjoyed watching her embrace like her talent or whatever they call it, and then this relationship with this guy. I also just like the world in general, like because we see the world kind of through her eyes. It's this really kind of fun little fantastical world where she sees ghosts everywhere, or she sees like evidence of ghosts everywhere. Like there's a scene early on where
Mhm.
she's driving around and like trees are waving at her and plastic bags are doing things, and it's like
Yeah.
that was a really cool way to set up that we're in a kind of fun supernaturally space. And
Well, it sets
And
that all starts with the
it
cold
leads to
open.
one of the
The like her father is the cold open, right? So the movie opens with a VHS recording of his show, and it's like in that like weird. I mean the aspect ratio
4:3.
is whatever 1:5, or, and so
4:3.
it's whatever. I knew you would know.
1:5 is
Uh,
not a thing.
Yeah, one.
Most-
I
most
just
people
I'm
do,
throwing
you
out
know.
numbers.
2, 10,
There's
niner.
a niner in there.
We get it, Eric. You're right for the magazine.
Hey,
Um, so for whatever, but that aspect, and no, and he's the one that tees up that the fact that like the ghosts are just like super lame, like
yeah.
like the evidence of ghosts is like a leaf is moving or
Yeah.
something, and like
Well,
and,
there's-
and-
or like you get a stomachache after eating cheese because the ghosts can live in the live bacteria in the
There's a scene in
cheese.
this
Yeah.
movie that I
Yeah.
don't know if anybody's ever seen. There's this actually like it's a pretty depressing documentary called like Not Another Bigfoot Movie or something like that. And it's about these two dudes out in like Appalachia somewhere who
Oh yeah.
they're just like down in their luck, just kind of like yokel dudes, and they're quote unquote, Bigfoot hunters. And there's this kind of running gag. It's not a gag to them, but it becomes a gag to the audience throughout the movie that he'll take photos just aimed at the woods, and then he'll develop them and be like, "There's a squatch right there," and like literally, it's just like a shadow behind a tree or something. He's like, "Oh, you got a baby squatch. These are squatch prints," and like that's what this opening kind of scene with the dad reminded me of, because there's totally a scene where there's just like a little blip in the photo. He's like, "That's a ghost. That's a ghost. That's a," like. But I love the little in particular, like I said, that scene where she's driving around, because it's like it's whimsical. Like that's kind of what this movie is. That's fun. Then Will Forte
And it
shows
sets
up.
up one of the best laugh scenes, I think, which is when she's the second time she drives around, and now she is starting to embrace her talents because she had this interaction with Martin and she felt a connection to him, and she's sort of starting to acknowledge her ability to talk to ghosts and their desire to communicate with her. And she like waves hello to the tree branch and waves hello to the toaster. And then there's just an old lady and she's like, "Oh, hello." And the old lady keeps waving. She goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were dead."
I loved the little in that same scene. There's a cool little special effect too. There's like almost a musical montage where the people turn into like ghosts. When I say ghosts, I mean literally like sheets, ethereal sheets,
Yeah.
like with eye holes.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Yeah.
that's kind of the vibe here, right? It's like whimsical. It's kind of like horror comedy mixed with a romantic comedy kind of thing. And then Will Forte shows up and like, listen, I love Will Forte. Like I understand he's like not necessarily everybody's taste, but that whole when that like early 2000s, when that whole SNL cast with like Will Forte, you know,
Fred Armisen.
Fred Armisen, Kristen Wiig,
Jason Sudeikis.
Jason Sudeikis, like when they were really like in an era, and again, this is the kind of SNL fun. Like everybody's like, "Oh, SNL sucks," but I loved it back then, and now that cast is looked back on and really revered, right, because of what they've gone on to do. But I've always been Will Forte has always brought something. He always stuck out in that cast because he's so friggin' weird, and I love that he just brings that to all of his performances. And like the first scene alone, when he shows up and they're like, it's all his info dump where he's explaining. He's like this. I know John kind of went through it, but he's like a religious musical artist kind of person, and he's getting ready to try to sell his soul to the devil so that he can make a comeback, which is funny in itself. And then like there's this whole thread about how he needs this I can't remember what he calls it, but this like carved wooden staff with a big like dong on the end her and
Which his girlfriend calls the Willy
she
stick.
calls it the
The Willy
Willy
stick.
stick, and I fucking lost it. Like just like her timing is so good. I love her on that other show, and she's like the two of them are just great foils for each other, because she kind of like there's something funny to Joe's point, there's like I almost found the lack of urgency on everyone's parts kind of hilarious. And part of the reason why Forte is so funny is that he's ostensibly the bad guy, but he's like the least threatening bad guy ever. And he's just kind of like just like silly and like,
what can I get you, my sweet?
Yeah, and it's funny, and she doesn't take him seriously, like the girlfriend, which is part of what makes him kind of funny. So yeah, I just loved it. And then the whole like this whole thing where he fakes like he's trying to get a driving lesson, and again, this is what I'm kind of saying by like there's a million little visual gags. Like they stop the car, and instead of she's waiting for him to get out, and then she realizes he's waiting for her to open the door for him.
Yeah,
like that shit is really funny, and that literally, but it's a kind of stuff where like you blink and you miss those jokes. Like 100%, I could see watching this a second time and like picking up on a ton of stuff. So I will actually. The only thing I'll agree with John is that the second act. No, the second act does meander a little bit. I totally will agree with that. But for me, I found the core romantic comedy part so endearing that it kind of pulled me through. But I was pretty relieved by the time because the third act goes like way over the top, and I was definitely pretty relieved for it to kind of move on to the next thing at that point.
I guess I think that's valid, and I think I can 100% agree with that. Like I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was more of just like a romantic comedy. Yeah. Like the third act, especially when we kind of get to the climax of like saving the daughter and everything, felt a little tacked on. Like I think I would have enjoyed this a lot more, honestly, if it was just this woman and this guy kind of getting together and like wading through the issues of like her being a medium and being able to see these ghosts and things, and just that story versus like, and again, like I really like Will Forte also. I kind of felt like I just needed like that first scene of him, and then you could have thrown him away. If you would have taken that entire thing out, like I think I would have been a lot more positive on this movie.
Interesting, because I think he actually he's like the spice, you know what I mean? Because he's not the main attraction. Yeah. Like he does show up semi-sparingly, really, until
too much spice is no good, Eric.
One of the funniest visuals in this, like the other visual that like I died when I saw, is this scene. It's kind of the beginning of the third act when they have the on the road confrontation, and Will Forte's kind of like control. So like. He has the guy's daughter kind of like she's in what is it? She's like in a trance or possessed or something. I don't even know what the technical term is, but like she's asleep.
She's levitating.
She's levitating, and he's controlling her, and she's floating in front of the car. But then there's a scene where they're all moving very slowly, and it cuts to the wide shot, and she's floating in front of the car that's being like controlling her, and just like really slowly floating.
Yeah. That whole segment was genius.
Really funny.
As far
when
as
they grab her by the ankle and start driving faster, that visual is so good.
And the fact that it was the bitchy wife that grabbed it too, because she wanted to be home before Chinese food got there.
I did not realize that they eat Chinese food in Ireland. Like that threw me off more than I think anything in this movie.
Like
Joe, it's universal, man.
Joe,
I know,
eat it
but
here.
like I don't know why I can't picture someone with a thick Irish accent eating Chinese food. Like that just. It's like, you know, when you see like an Asian person from Jamaica, like with an accent, like that's just weird to me. Like
you're racist against Irish people. We're finally getting to the bottom.
Yeah,
that's just
Joe.
Like, it's very like.
No, you just think Irish people aren't cultured.
The Irish people should eat Irish food and just be done with it.
Did you know Ireland has McDonald's, Joe?
No, I don't know why. Like. Chinese food, like especially like American Chinese food, feels very American to me. So like I can't imagine like an entire family in Ireland getting like General Chow's. Like it throws me off. I don't like it. That's why I hated this movie. I don't like it.
Yo, we should get off of this topic ASAP.
There's a million jokes. Any other like favorite gags you guys liked?
No, I was actually going to talk about it because I think Joe brings up like a fair point, and Eric, you kind of hit on it too. The pacing is like a little wonky, right? In the way that, I mean, so Joe's critique of the sort of lack of urgency, I 100% picked up on, and sort of, I almost felt the opposite way where I was like, the movie was so sort of goofy and whimsical and had its own sensibility that I was just sort of like, all right, like whatever, like clearly, like you knew they were going to solve the problem at the end, and you're just like, they're going to get to this in a very backhanded way. The thing that it set up for me that I loved is, so you know that they have to get the 8 ectoplasms, like that's like a thing that they basically say it in the first 20 minutes of the movie, and they get 1. Like the movie is 2/3 over, and you're like, holy shit, they're gonna do 7 more of these.
Yeah,
and so then you basically
exactly.
but you get 6 of them in like 8 minutes or something, and it was pretty great. Like I loved all of basically the third act. You get such, I mean, Eric kind of talked about the joke density, but it's all these interactions. It's that guy who plays the Martin character just doing all these characters, and then it all comes to a head when they channel his wife, and that because that was who he originally had brought her Rose in to help him with, and it like goes poorly, and now he's basically his wife is inhabiting him for the rest of the film. And at first I was like, I don't know if I need this to continue, but they stuck with it. And like by the end, the fact that he had a cigarette in his mouth every time he transformed into the wife, so ridiculous. Like, where did the cigarette come from?
Martin's performance as Bonnie in Martin's body was one of the funniest things. Also because I'm fairly certain that Bonnie had a Scottish accent. So like the switch and the cigarette and just like because his character is so proper and muted, and Bonnie was so brash. Like there's
she's
that
abusive.
one.
She's literally abusing him.
Yes. Oh yeah. But that's not what I mean. I just like mean the style of her speaking. It's funny to see that actor. Like not only does he totally change physically when he's pretending that he is Bonnie in Martin's body, but hearing him say things like, "Oh, make sure you look after them for me. I don't mean his balls." And Rose is like, "Yeah, I did. That's not ever what I thought you meant. Like I knew what you were talking about."
Well, right, and then the other I forget her name, but the main character, like her reactions to that stuff is really like her deadpan reactions to everything. I will say I super could have done without the ectoplasm vomiting. It was like way more disgusing than it needed to be.
Loved it. That was so good.
I cannot handle on-screen vomiting. Like I look away.
One of the best like comic, I mean, pardon the pun, but like one of the best gags in the movie is when Martin is like, "Why does it have to be so unnecessarily gross?" while he's like vomiting ectoplasm out of his
Yes,
mouth.
it's very disgusting.
It's so much too. There's like such a big volume. I respect the effort. So
Yeah, I agree. It was boring.
I know, Joe. It's funny, like Joe,
because
Joe texted or emailed and was like, whatever. It's not that big a deal." Like because we were debating like what day we're gonna record or something, and I was like, "Huh, that's weird," because it looked really good. And then I started watching. I texted John. I'm like, "John, I really like this. What's going on with Joe?"
They can't all be
Turns
zingers.
out you all listened to me when I told you how good this movie was. Sorry, Joe. You're just wrong, but we still love you.
That's all right. Your generation is wrong about a lot of things.
Joe, she's like 8 years younger than you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're in the same generation, Joe.
No, you're millennial. I'm definitely Gen.
Actually, yeah, Joe. Yeah, that's true. Joe's a
true.
very end Gen Xer.
he wears it on his sleeve. So.
78.
That's right.
I will say I was a little put off by sort of where the film gets to with how there's like one pretty gory scene, but it actually goes like full horror by the end. And I mean, it's still jokey, but you get
pretty out of nowhere too.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was almost like put off by it at first, but it still has a little bit of whimsy to it. The one thing I'll say, I guess, is the effects here were like really good. I mean, granted, watching a streaming thing on I was watching on my computer, not on a TV, but it looked great. Like for a movie where the budget had to be what it made me think of is like the bar for effects. Like if you have bad effects in a film, you just get the fuck out of here. Like,
there's no excuse. Yeah.
There's no excuse. There's no way these guys had any budget. What they found is like someone who just like really knew what they were doing, and they made the right kind of decisions about framing and like just not trying to overdo it and yada yada. Just the way the demon had a sheet on, it actually might have been like harder to do than other stuff, but I thought it was really, really well done.
I agree.
I think we should give this movie credit for the fact that it did have folks who, Will Forte and what's her name? O'Doherty. What's her first name?
Claudia.
Claudia. Yeah, so this movie had enough budget to get people who like folks were going to recognize. So it's not like a tiny micro budget indie film.
That was where
just like in the defense of tiny micro budget indie
my
films.
comparison though came up to that, and not necessarily in tone, but like just something about the production, that zombie movie we did with Lupita Nyong'o and Josh Gad, because it's similar in the sense of like it's a European indie film with a couple of like random American actors in it, right? Like
That movie was
That's
Australian.
Australian, though.
but
Europe. Well, okay, whatever. You know, what
It
I'm
was
saying.
it was English language with accents, is what you were trying to say, I think.
Yeah.
What would we call? What would
I
we
don't.
call?
I don't want to watch Australian people eat Chinese food either. So I'm with you.
You know what's weird though, Joe? On the weird tip of what Joe's saying, there's something very like just startling to me seeing a movie with like Irish actors and an Australian actor in the same scene. I don't know why. It was like, wow, that blew my mind for some reason.
It freaks you out. Yeah. It's a lot. I don't. It's the way we were raised, or like we grew up. Like Crocodile Dundee was the only Australian we know.
Yeah.
And he's a white man, and like. Leslie and I watched a show, and it was like a cooking show, and there was an Asian woman with an Australian accent, and like, I projectile vomited. I was so like,
Australia just seems so exotic and like far flung to me.
it seems
Oh my
so
God.
white, like
This has
ridiculously
just
white.
taken a turn.
But you watched the Nightingale, Joe. You understand
Yeah.
the history of Australia now,
Listen,
right?
I learned more. I learned
Yeah.
more about Australia than I ever wanted to know from Nightingale.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
really.
Ay, ay, ay. All right. No, but Eric, I do think that was you had raised that over email, and like it's a great comparison. I mean, there's other movies, right? Like there's been other sort of like crossovers of films.
Plenty of other movies, John, like hundreds, not thousands.
Some other movies have been made / produced. No, but this really like fits into that niche of, I think.
No, but it
this
was like kind of similar scope, kind of a similar like goofy vibe. I just find it interesting. Like I'm used to seeing, oh, we get a film from another country and it's all actors from that country. So I find this like international kind of like melting pot horror movie thing like kind of fascinating. I like it. Like
mean, maybe
it's what it does is it gives these movies really unique vibes.
maybe Will Forte is trying to become an Irish citizen. We
And
don't know.
And I also
He's-
like,
I mean,
but I
like to me what Eric is saying is he retroactively loved the movie Friend Request because it featured actors from America and South Africa
movie
and
was-
was filmed in
that
South
movie-
Africa.
that movie
so
is
you
so
loved
bad.
Friend Request. Is
that
that
movie
accurate?
that movie is so bad. But like like seeing Will, and I said this when we did what was that zombie movie, John? I'm sorry.
Little Monsters.
Yes, I said this when we did Little Monsters, but it's cool seeing like in this case, Will Forte interact with these actors that you wouldn't normally see him with. Like that's kind of a fun aspect to it. I feel like.
I mean, I like Will Forte, but like, what's he doing? Like, I think we're like,
This-
he's not fucking Pacino here.
No,
right?
but what's
Like,
Josh Gad doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Frozen?
I don't know.
yeah, but that's just
I
the
didn't
voice.
think this was all that off from anything Will Forte's done in the past.
Yeah,
I mean,
He's like a He,
somebody covers his shift at the
Very
Sprint
on
store, and he
brand
goes
for
makes this
Will
movie.
Forte.
Yeah, exactly.
Joe, I will not have this slander on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is like very on brand for Will Forte, I think. And I liked getting to see him. I feel like a lot of times the characters that Will Forte plays are intentionally absurd. Like I'm thinking
Right,
of the movie
right.
Nebraska or Last Man on Earth, where he's sort of playing a caricature of what we think Will Forte would be like as a person. And I liked seeing him in this because he plays a character that takes himself so seriously in this movie, but is so inherently ridiculous. And one of the, I don't know if you would necessarily call it like a bit or a gag, but sort of like the recurring idea that he takes himself so seriously, but he's half-assing everything. Like we have this scene where he's like chanting and there's all this spooky music, and then his wife calls him for dinner and all the spooky music is on a boombox. Like I just found that very funny. I could watch Will Forte walk around and drop that dick stick for a full hour and a half. That
yeah.
scene was so
Right.
fun.
The
That's
setup
a
of
50 Cent
you-
song, by the way. Drop that dick stick.
Drop that dick stick.
Guys, good news though, because Will Forte is in the fourth. He plays Shaggy in the forthcoming Scoob,
Oh God.
which is going to be streaming direct to video.
They got him, huh?
They announced this week. Come on, Joe. I know you're excited for Scoob.
Dude, you
Yeah,
just
I am
reminded me.
actually- I watched that trailer and like I got the misties. Like
You-
it looks very
You
sweet.
just reminded me, like Matthew Lillard's Twitter is actually like really funny if you follow him. He's like very self-aware of like his level of celebrity status, and he
Is
had
he
this.
salty about Scoob? and the
No,
fact that
well, so
wasn't
he had
invited?
this story. He was. This actually is not Scooby related, but just made me think of him. He was on a plane, And the stewardess come up and was like, "Excuse me, I want to ask you something, but I don't want to offend you." And he was like, "Okay." And she goes, "Are you Matthew Lillard?" And he just wrote like ... Like, why would that offend me? It's funny. Matthew
Oh,
Lillard
That
problems.
was the
no.
most digressive
He was
digression.
no. You guys brought up. Listen, there's a clear 1-to-1 there, John. Okay.
Yeah, I can follow.
Thank you.
Those Scooby movies from like the early 2000s are delightful.
I mean,
Like,
honestly,
they are so
They're
good.
great.
I give zero shits about Scooby Doo, so I haven't seen them and have no plan to. So, who could
You
like? I'm not
apparently love Matt Lillard. I don't know what you.
Yeah,
a.
you really should.
John, you ever
So-
seen Scream?
I'm familiar.
Or maybe his on-screen debut, Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College.
I have not seen that. I have seen MacGruber several times and highly endorse.
Yeah, yeah. I
Oh,
would say
I've heard
that's,
that they're trying to make a
Geek
sequel to
Forte.
MacGruber.
Yeah, I
would
also
hope
heard
so.
the same. But
just
so.
find someone to cover Starbucks schedule and they got him.
Go.
Joe
Keep
Joe
your
has
shit
literally
to yourself, Joseph.
Joe has literally the same joke about every actor that he doesn't like, and it's like it doesn't matter who it is. It's the same joke
I
every
don't
time.
dislike Will Forte. I just feel like you guys are talking about him like they fucking landed Tom Cruise or something for this thing.
No, but like listen, he's a person. People, if you're making a small indie comedy, or let's say a modestly sized indie comedy, he's a name. The dude was on SNL for like 8 years.
Mm. So was Joe Piscopo.
Well,
He had
you ever
his own
seen
show.
Available.
you ever seen Dead Heat,
Yeah,
Joe?
he was like the
That is a
lead
good
in
movie.
Life
I
on
will-
Earth. It was a really successful show.
That got canceled.
I'm just saying, Joe. You look at that poster for Dead Heat; it's got Joe Piscopo in huge letters on there.
Yeah, I'll go to bat for that movie for sure. I appreciate that.
We found some common ground. I like it. Would you guys recommend this, Sophie?
1000%. Yes. And if you can find a place, Kino Marquee is streaming it and you can support lots of local theaters. So I would rent it and watch it that way.
Yeah, and that's a cool, that's a cool part of this for sure. Because it's not like you're just, hey, I'm paying $20 to see a movie on demand, which we've talked about a lot. And some people, especially if people are watching by themselves, are like, it's a little rich for my blood. But this is cool because you can watch a fun movie and also support somebody, which is nice. Casey,
Yeah, I liked it.
Joe,
No, I would say watch Dead Heat.
John.
Yes.
I would say yes. And Joe, on the other side of this break here, I'm going to need my year-end list.
Ugh, absolutely not.
Yeah. Way
Yeah.
to go, Eric.
We got to go over the last couple of things we did, too. Can I put Elvira on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this movie came out in like last year, right?
No, it theatrical release 2020.
Yeah.
All right, John.
All right, guys. That's going to do it for Extraordinary. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
You can't achieve death. We won't know unless we try.
On November 4th, the greatest horror classic of its time becomes the most chilling epic of our time.
It's alive.
Francis Ford Coppola presents a Kenneth Branagh film.
What have I done?
Robert De Niro. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Rated R. Starts Friday, November 4th at a theater near you.
Hi, this is Tom Savini, and you're listening to BloodyGoodHorror.com.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we're back. I have been going on a tear lately watching horror movies while I work. Turns out, John, when I need extreme comfort food, there's a couple things I go for. And number one is Friday the 13th. Oh my God, those
I go-
movies. I love them so much.
I go for chicken and a biscuit.
Ah, that's fair too. Those are delicious. You know what I
so
watched, John, for the first time in years the other day? In the Mouth of Madness, which is on Shudder right now. Holy
That's like a
I've
top
never
10
seen
for
it.
me.
that
It's
movie
good, right?
is
What a
fucking
delight,
It is
yeah.
so epic. It is weirdly one of Carpenter's like creepiest films. I say weirdly because it's like a weird kind of creepy. It's like this dread that just like sets in.
No, yeah, that's like that's on my Rushmore personal Rushmore. Sutter Kane. I've used that as a handle in.
Oh,
certain
look at
places.
this guy! Wow.
Yeah, I love that movie.
In various AOL porn chat rooms.
Yes, that's
Sutter
primarily
Kane.
there.
Sutter Kane, ASL.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm just watching a lot. And one thing I watched, Joe, this past weekend.
Is that on? Is it on Shudder?
It's
right
on
now?
Shudder, yeah. One thing I watched this past weekend, Joe, we had a big, very fun get together on Slack for the season 2 premiere of The Last Drive-In.
Oh, that was delightful. I got super high and could like
Same, bro.
not
Same.
know what was going on.
Yeah, you couldn't work the computer machine.
No, I literally. So we were watching the movies, and like everyone was commenting. And first of all, it was really hard to keep up with. But at like a certain point, I'm like, "Are you guys watching a different movie than I am?" Like, the comments in the Slack chat did not match the movie I was watching after a while.
It was so much fun. So they did Chopping Mall, which is fantastic. Then they did. I made it through all of Chopping Mall. Then they did Bloodsucking Freaks, which I've never seen before. Bloodsucking Freaks is like, I actually rented this movie in college once. It's like this notorious, disgusting, like low budget exploitation movie. I watched 10 minutes of it when I was in college and turned it off because I'm like, this thing's garbage. But this was like kind of perfect setting to watch it in. I made it like 20 minutes and then passed out.
I think that's about where I did.
Which is kind of a bummer because like I kind of wanted to see the whole thing, but it's just a movie I cannot picture watching by myself.
Yeah, that's kind of Leslie and I were watching it and like we were having a good time, but then like we both just passed out and like I can't picture myself like starting that back up and watching it like while I'm working.
But again, there was a bunch of people that made all the way through, stayed up till 2 a.m. It's always fun, like, and we're all like planning to meet up this Friday night, so you can catch us on Slack, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. Joe, I bought just for this Friday. I bought a woodchuck cider pear secco, which is like a dry pear cider, which I'm pretty excited about.
That does sound nice.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. It was you posted on Twitter that the like the theme song always gives you the feels, and like 100% agree.
And then
like
and then it crashed. So I had on the stupid countdown, which I love, and I'm like so excited. I'm like, oh man, it's all working. Blah blah blah. 9 o'clock hits, Shudder crashes. I get booted out. It wants me to log in. I can't log in. There's a server error. I was like, you mother effers. So by the time
I had a little trouble too, like nothing that bad, but like it definitely timed out.
By the time I got on, I missed the whole intro. It was like 5 minutes in. I was so pissed.
Yeah.
My wife knows when this show's coming on to like disappear 5 minutes before, because if I start having like technical difficulties, you don't want to be anywhere near me.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Like John, you know what I'm like when like something goes wrong in the show and I can't fix it?
Yeah, you get a little frantic, I would say.
Like
we know.
But it was a lot of fun, and you know, as always, shout out to everybody who joins us on Slack. It's super cool. Oh, Joe, since we have a little time, not a lot of fan mail. I would like you right now to describe to John Schnars the function of turnips in Animal Crossing and the saga that's been going on this week with you. Again, this is all Slack stuff too.
Just a wide awake nightmare. So I don't know if you're familiar with Animal Crossing, John, but like there's fruits and vegetables and again, this is my like I just started playing like a month ago. I'm still very confused by a lot of it. But you can buy turnips on Sunday and you buy them at a price, and then throughout the week the price either goes up and down, and you pretty much you have to sell
It's
them.
a market, Joe.
Yes, actually, John, it's the stalk market. STALK.
Do turnips serve like a specific purpose in Animal Crossing, different than other?
It's only you can't do anything with them except gamble. Is like every day you check the price, and you buy them on Sunday mornings, and you could get screwed. Like you could buy them too high, and then the price never goes back up that high. You got to check it twice a day because it changes.
But they like rot at the end of the week?
Yes.
Like, you have to throw them
They
out?
only last a week. So I have never bought them, but Saturday, our good buddy Aussie Andy was online, And in Australia, it is Sunday. And he's like, hey, the turnip salesman's already here. And I'm like, awesome. I'm going to go buy some from you, bring it back. So we did that like 3 or 4 times.
I love this
Made a
stupid game.
nice bank.
I love the stupid
So
game so much.
Sunday, I get up and
You
I'm
were
like,
cheating
all right.
the game. You were
Yeah.
cheating.
Well, no,
I
it's
was all
actually
pumped
having Andy is awesome because he's so far in a different time zone that your stores like close at 10 o'clock at night or something, but it's the morning for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
how
it
do you
was great.
think, Joe? How do you think Andy's gonna feel about selling you turnips when he hears that you don't think he should be allowed to eat Chinese food?
I don't think he's. No, at no point. Listen, you guys are making this up. At no point did I say they shouldn't be allowed to eat Chinese food. I just said it is very like it's like a weird contrast to me because like I never think of Chinese food as like something that people in like American Chinese food that people in other countries.
This is like
eat,
a
right?
hoisted on your own petard type situation. I
really
think,
is.
but, you know,
Okay, John,
let's continue.
with the
Let's
word
continue with the
with the words, John. Okay, let's take it down a notch. Joe, continue.
So Aussie and India had this thing going where like I would go to his island, buy turnips, bring it back to mine and sell. He would buy turnips from his and go and sell them at mine.
Y'all
And
thought
like
you
we
had a
started
rack.
making
I mean,
we had a nice little profit ring going here. So Sunday I wake up and my turnip salesman's there. I'm all hopped up on turnip juice, like very excited. I buy like $200,000 worth of turnips and like immediately start to
American
freak.
dollars.
Yeah.
I'm just
Listen, that takes a while to get that much too.
Yeah.
Bells.
So the next day I wake up and so I buy them for what, like 99, I think. I wake up and the turnip price in my little town is like $47 or something ridiculous. Like, and I start to freak the fuck out. I'm like, now I got this stress weighing on me that like, am I going to lose all my money because of
And
these
well,
goddamn
so
turnips?
here's the other aspect of this. The other person who bought turnips this week, who is also freaking out on Slack, is
Oh.
Jamie. And so you know Joe and Jamie, they're like winding each other up. They're both losing their minds about the turnip price. They've got everybody in the channel checking their stores twice a day so that they can unload these things for a profit. Finally today, Joe got what I would call a modest price in somebody's store, and I'm like,
I made
for the love
a
of God,
50%
Joe,
profit
just
on my
sell.
turnips. Yeah, no, I made like I probably could have held out for more, and like I don't know. Now that it's all over, like I wish I had, but like it's a fucking nightmare. This game, I don't understand why anyone plays it.
John,
like,
John,
gotta guess
there's
that you've never gone to Vegas and or played the stock market.
So John,
No.
there's a thing on Twitter where when people get good prices, they will open their island up publicly and start a queue of people and let people in one at a time to come and sell their turnips. And somebody was explaining to me that like they have bouncers sometimes, or they'll like have little walled off things so you
that's
can only get up to
disgusting.
their
Those
store.
People should be ashamed of themselves.
And you can like leave them, some people want like a tip or something if you go there. It's
I was gonna say, what do you get out of it? Like, do you get a cut if they buy them on your island? Like, that's what I don't
well,
understand.
no, it's listen, we're doing it because are you familiar with the concept of being friends with someone, John?
Well, you're describing people on Twitter who have like.
Well, no, but on
are
Twitter,
playing
yeah, on
little
Twitter they
card
want
games.
stuff, or they're just bored. Whatever, we're all bored, man. We're just trying to make it through, buddy.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would
Alright.
also like to point out that Joe's been
Seems like
saying.
seems like everyone's driving each other crazy.
I'd also
but
like to point
okay.
out, no, it's delightful. Like it's honest, it's legit my favorite channel on Slack right now. Like I want Joe to buy turnips every week.
I don't think I could do it again. Like honestly, I mean, I'm sure I will, but like
I would like to
I
tell
don't-
you too. It goes all week. Joe made it until Tuesday.
Yeah. right.
I mean, my problem was like I spent like I haven't been playing for that long. I don't usually have that much like bells or cash or whatever the fuck it is.
Joe
and,
doesn't
like,
have walking around bells.
So the other thing, the other
Golden bells.
the whole other aspect of this, which like nobody else is dealing with, is the fact that my daughter is also on the island.
Oh,
Like,
that was
she
the
has her
best-
own account.
That was the best part.
So I didn't realize you can store just about everything in like your own personal storage. You
Oh.
can't put turnips in there. So I get into my house and I go to put them in storage and I'm like, what the fuck? So I put them in the second room of my house. I have to clear out everything. And then I start to freak out because my 8-year-old daughter will just go around the island and be like, well, I cut down this shit in this tree and I fucked up this stuff that you made, Dad. So I'm like, this fucking kid's going to come into my room, eat $2,000, like $200,000 worth of turnips in my goddamn house, and everything's gonna go to hell. So I put them all in this room. I clear out everything else. I get a couch. I put it in front of the door that goes into the other room.
Joe,
And literally, I go up to my daughter and I'm like, "Listen, do not eat my turnips. All right, like I will burn every one of your toys. If you don't answer me.
Joe barricaded his turnip room with a couch, and just in the hopes that his daughter couldn't figure out how to move it.
Is it hard to move? Like I just
It's not,
but she's very surface level. Like literally, like you have to make like yourself an axe, and like hers will break over time. And she'll be like, "Nah, I just didn't make another one." I'm like, "All right, well, I'll leave you one." Like like she knows like I will do everything. So like I just pictured her like
isn't that being a parent?
into my house
she's
like,
an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like it's just
I love it.
The added level of stress.
I would like to also point out
too
that
much.
Joe's been saying how much he hates this game for 3 straight weeks, and yet he's still playing it.
Yeah. I thought he had given up, just to be clear, because that's
thing,
all I heard.
I don't hate it, but like this stress, I'm like, why am I doing this? And the things that I do in this game are the same things I do at my house, like picking weeds and like planting bushes and stuff. I'm like, why aren't I just going outside and doing this in real life?
I find it incredibly relaxing, which is why I like it. But I also get nowhere near that turnip market because that would make it unenjoyable for me.
Yeah, I don't know if I can do it.
I'm not a
again.
gambling
I think
man. I'm
this
not a
one-
gambling man, Joe. You know.
No, I paid for my new bridge. I paid off the extra room in my house. Like I think I'm done. Like I think I can't do this again.
All right. That took up more time than I anticipated, but I enjoyed it. Joe, really quick, can you tell me about the 5K, please?
Yeah, so we finally posted information on the site. We're doing the week of May 15th through the 17th. That's a Friday through Sunday. Normally we just do Saturday and Sunday, but this time around the BGH social distancing virtual 5K. No medals or anything this time, although you can definitely send in your time to bloodygoodhorror@gmail.com. Our defending champ, John, I think is going to want to compare his times to everyone else now that he's getting back out there. And again, we'll still be doing our usual in October, but this we just thought would be like a fun idea to like get folks out there and like have something to do since we're all pretty much quarantined at this point. And Eric's like out there walking and exercising, so he pretty much forced us to do this. So
yeah.
bloodygoodhorror.com. If you go to the site, there's info there. But honestly, it's really just use the hashtag BGH5K, post up your photos, go out, have fun, and do what you got to do.
Also, just to give you an idea of the kind of shape I'm in, I actually hurt my shoulder walking because I have arthritis in my shoulder. I have arthritis in my shoulder, and I've been walking my dog for the first time in like really a long ways for the first time in a while. And he it's like a constant pull. He's not big, but it's just like this repetitive, movement. And I forgot that I need to like switch leash hands, and I didn't, and I just kept using my left hand, and then woke up, I couldn't move my whole left arm the other day. Like I've been in excruciating pain for like 4 days, so, and I'm still doing it. So there you go. Thank you for that, Sophie. 2 things you want to talk about quick, and then we'll get to Twitter.
Yes, so the first thing is, for anyone who doesn't know, I've been doing Tweet with BGH every Saturday since everyone's stuck inside. We're doing every week instead of every month. This last week we did Extraordinary. We had a really good turnout. This week we're going to be doing Night of the Lepus, which is about giant killer rabbits.
I thought it was
Lepus, I believe, is the
Lepus?
I've always said it Lepus, but who the hell knows?
Well,
whatever the word is.
Most people that know
it's
how to
about
pronounce
bunnies.
the word, Eric, I think those.
I would think Lepus. I would think Lepus would be Lepis.
Why don't we let Sophie watch the movie, and then she can tell us how they say it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they'll use that term in the movie, and if they do, I'll let you know.
The guy just
but
turns
we do
around
it
and he's
every
like,
Saturday
the guy's
at
like, it's
7
almost
Eastern.
Sorry, I was gonna make a Lepus joke. I'm done. Go ahead.
Every Saturday at 7 Eastern, you can follow at BGH New Class Live on Twitter, and I'll be tweeting from that account. And then if you just use the hashtag Tweet with BGH, then you can be within the community of people that are watching and usually lovingly shitting on the bad movies we watch.
Oh.
The other thing that I wanted to plug just real quick is my younger sister and I have started a horror podcast, and it's called 28 Days Later. Our most recent episode, we were discussing The Final Girls with our friend Ashley. And if you listen to that episode, you can hear about how David Tennant accidentally photobombed us or Zoom bombed us when we tried to do a virtual brunch on Zoom for our podcast.
Nice.
It's one of those ones where you don't feel creeped out, I guess.
Yeah, it got worse after that. We had a lot of weird, shitty, gross Zoom bombs, but the one where I will say until my dying day it was David Tennant was hysterical and not scary.
You can
Wait,
make them
why?
private,
You had
right?
multiple Zoom bombs in one thing?
The fuck's a
Yeah.
Zoom bomb?
When
if you
people
don't,
just like join a random Zoom and say shitty things, or like no one exposed themselves, we just have people like
you have to
so, like,
actively
for example-
you have to actively lock it down and make it private, or people can just join apparently.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Well, so
didn't
what
realize
happened is,
that
and
they-
we definitely walked into it because like we're a very new podcast, and so I was like, we have a pretty small following. We have a very small following on Twitter. We wanted this to be a thing that like fans could participate in if they wanted to, and we couldn't figure out. I'm not super tech savvy and didn't have time to try to figure out a different way. So we were gonna try it via Zoom, and like early on this guy joined and I was like, he could be a fan, we have no way of knowing, and then he wasn't, and then like 10 minutes in we had like 3 people join at once that were just like posting a bunch of super offensive shit, and then I just locked the room.
So you posted the link to Zoom on Twitter.
I did. We can
That-
talk
yeah.
about it later. It wasn't a great idea.
Oh, that's on you.
That
yeah.
explains everything.
We have like 10 Twitter followers, so I was like, I'm not that worried about getting Zoom
Yeah,
on because
but-
no one knows who we
No,
are.
no, but I bet
definitely
people
people
are.
who are
I bet
filtering
people
that
have
shit.
bots just trolling
Yeah.
for Zoom links right now. So
Zoom bomb, you're my Zoom bomb. That's my favorite Tom Jones song, John.
Joe, Twitter.
Yeah, we got the tweets. Let's bang through these because I'm getting tipsy here. First up, we are on Twitter at BG Horror. Every week we use the hashtag AskBGH. That's if you want to shoot in a question or just get to know us. First up from our buddy Skizbot. Is there a movie from your childhood you want, all caps, to see a remake of? I think a modern take on Flight of the Navigator could be pretty amazing.
I don't want to see it. I don't want to see a remake on anything. I'll watch them because whatever. I have no control over it. But
Yeah.
I don't. I haven't. I've never in my life thought I'd love to see this movie remade. Like, who gives a
No,
shit? If a movie's a movie.
I'm gonna go with like Beethoven. You remember Beethoven?
Oh, yeah, Charles Grodin.
Yeah.
My wife swears that I look like, when I have my glasses on, that I look like the bad guy in that movie.
I don't remember the bad guy, but
I'm now
No,
Googling the
Yeah.
So
villain's
he's the
Beethoven.
actor. If you're familiar with Friends, he's the actor who plays Rachel's dad. Also, I don't know his name.
you remind me of the older son when you have your glasses on.
Oof. That kid.
All right,
That kid,
Kid is
yeah,
not.
yeah.
All right,
No,
John.
he had a couple.
John,
he had some moments.
John,
back
when
then.
you look like that, you remind me of a predator. So there you go.
You mean just when I like am myself? Wait, is Stanley
Aaron, this person?
Yes.
Your wife says you look like this person?
Yeah, she does.
Oh my.
Yikes.
Those glasses are
It's
like 20,000 miles thick.
Listen, she's been with me
Maybe
for.
quarantine's not going quite as good as you think.
Listen, she's been with me for 15 years, so joke's on her.
Oh, this was the kid from Step by Step. Was he also in Step by Step?
Step by step.
Oh, maybe.
This doctor is like a real thick bit, and I'm only talking about his glasses, not like his body.
That's Dean Jones, I believe, is the actor.
There you go. Hell of a guy.
Wow.
What's next?
Fun fact, John, Step by Step, the intro at the amusement park was filmed at the Gurney Six Flags, just about
Dude,
20 minutes from my house. You ever want to visit?
I loved that show when I was a kid.
Oh God, I watched it and I knew it was bad.
I was way into all that TGIF stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up from that ghoul Ava, who used to write for this site many moons ago. She asks, "Do mega hats make you stupid? What if I inject bleach and all caps wear the hat?"
Wait, what's a mega hat? I don't know.
I
Wait,
think-
is she talking about?
Mega hat.
I think
She's
Joe's.
talking
Make
about
America great again?
I think Joe's
you said
pronouncing it
mega
weird.
hat.
Yeah,
No, he said MAGA.
Oh, MAGA? I don't know, whatever.
I say MAGA.
Yeah,
Maga.
maga.
Soft
usually.
A.
No, I don't think it's the hat that makes you a dum-dum.
It's something else.
It's what's inside.
Yeah.
Next up from our good friend Whitney.
It's
who
your
just
brains,
posted in
you
our-
dummy.
Yeah. It's the insides there.
Yeah.
Whitney, who just posted on Slack that she apparently is selling turnips for 627
Oh.
moon rocks or whatever the fuck it
My
is.
God, Joe. Did she get on the Did she get on one of those trains though?
I don't, Eric, I don't know what she does in her personal time. That's inappropriate. That's at Whitney Players. Have you picked up any new hobbies during this quarantine?
I've been working on a lot of music in my spare time.
Yeah. I taught myself how to draw.
That's super cool.
To be fair,
Yeah, that was fun.
listen, I'm also spending a lot of time playing Animal Crossing and eating ice cream. So it's not like all product.
Those aren't new hobbies.
It can't all be. Well, the degree to which I'm doing them is new.
I think I talked about puzzles before, right? I've been doing puzzles. I've also been trying to get my kids to play soccer just because I got to get them outside. So I got all this I bought those pop-up soccer goals. You can get them for $20. So I don't know. We're trying to make that happen. We'll see.
Huh. Both the missus and I have been baking a lot. I've got a sourdough starter that I've been nurturing.
Joe, you make pasta. Don't bury the lead here.
Yeah, we made pasta yesterday. It came out great.
it looked
for our
really
first
good.
time, I didn't have high expectations, but it was super good. I was very happy with it. Sophie, anything on your end?
Yeah,
You
I'm in a very reading heavy job, so I'm trying to get back into the habit of reading for fun, which I haven't done since I was 12. But Joe, like you, I've also been doing a lot of baking. So I did a recipe last week that was called Depression Chocolate Cake. It was popularized during the Great Depression. It's not like emotional depression.
I was gonna say,
but it was a chocolate cake that didn't have any eggs or butter or milk in it.
Oh, interesting.
And it was delightful. And I'm planning on making a sweet potato brioche this weekend.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. I was gonna say, are you sheet caking over there?
Not yet.
I've definitely been making a lot of pancakes and.
Holy sheet cake!
You know what I discovered? So I love bacon, but I hate making bacon. It's it's dirt, it's filthy. There's grease everywhere. It's a pain in the ass. It smokes.
How do you make it though? How do you do it?
How do you feel about Kevin bacon?
I tend to make it in the oven because I hate frying
Yeah.
it. But even that's a pain. But then you got to clean up the grease, whatever. So I was looking one day at the bacon bits aisle, and Hormel makes a bacon bit that's actually just real bacon, just chopped up. So I just buy that. I make eggs.
We
I go
get that
ding,
from
ding, ding.
Costco.
Done.
Like a giant bag of it.
And
yeah,
I'm
I
eating way
agree.
less because I'm just kind of getting the essence of the bacon, and I'm good. I don't need to eat 4 pieces.
For me, and we've talked about this, I fry bacon on the stove, and
Who has
that's
time for that?
50% of the fucking enjoyment is just.
No, I hate it.
Smell it. My stomach's give me that goddamn bacon already.
The sound of the sizzle.
I get
love
really
every second
really
of it.
paranoid about setting off the main fire alarm in my building. Also, I don't want to summon the fire department because I
I don't
Wait,
understand.
now
Is it over your stove?
I don't have a very good vent above my
Oh.
stove.
I
Alright,
need to
that's
know do you guys like your bacon? Do you like it kind of wobbly with the fat on it or crispy?
Crispy, wobbly
Fat.
is for
Yeah,
psychos.
I like crispy. Leslie likes a little bit of chew to it. So usually
John, John,
Very-
do not ever make that weird lick face you just made. Stop.
God, guys, I'm getting off this call and going to cook some bacon.
I'm gonna
right
put
now.
out a call out
I
now.
actually have a whole batch upstairs.
I'm putting a call out now. Was it Dusty who was making us gifts a while ago? Please, for
I
the
literally
love,
was just thinking the same thing.
please, for the love of God, somebody gift that. Was it Dusty?
We can let this one go, guys.
No.
I forget that we're on video, so this is a problem, but
Yeah.
it's what it is.
All right, we got a few more here from our good friend Lycanthropology. What horror franchise should I wade through next? I finished Halloween, and I'm still going through Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
She started Alien, she said.
Yeah, I mean, she
She
this,
goes through those.
this was Alyssa, right?
Yeah.
So she's
Yeah.
I would say I might say considerably younger than the rest of us. So if you haven't seen A Nightmare on Elm Street and you've done Halloween Friday the 13th, that's where I'd go next. But Alien's also a solid pick.
No,
I've
I just
been
like,
getting
she
ready
is watching
to-
it. She was posting about it, I think.
I've been getting ready to go back through the Paranormal Activity franchise while I've been stuck in my house.
Ooh, number 3.
Mm.
Number 3.
You can
Oh.
stop before you get to the ghost dimension. Just pretend it never happened.
We've talked about this
It was
on
fine.
the episode, and I don't want to go too far, but
I like the gimmick of
Paranormal
it.
Activity, they're not, even when they're not great, they're still
It's still a ride.
they still scare the shit out of me.
It's
yeah.
still a ride. Yeah, totally. There's at least
Yeah.
a couple good gags in every one.
Yeah.
It's just some of them work better as like whole movies.
I couldn't, other than the first one, I could not tell you what happened in any of the other ones at this point.
No,
Except
there's-
maybe.
You should go revisit them.
Well, no, the only other one I remember is the marked ones, right? That was
I
the one that
remember.
sort of
I
a spin-off.
remember.
You don't remember the one with the daughters where they have the like camera on a oscillating fan going
yeah,
back
that's
and
three.
forth?
That was
I
the third
honestly
one,
think
right?
was the
That's
best,
three.
That's the one in
Yeah,
the 80s.
That's the best one.
I remember 1, 2, and 3 very clearly because I've seen all of them a
Yeah.
bunch of times. The rest of them are very fuzzy. I don't remember much about the Ghost Dimension other than I think it was 3D and it was all like 3D gimmicks, right?
Yeah, it was really not great. It's really not good.
And I remember
But
like
yes, it's-
some about what was the like
The marked one.
yes, that was the one that was kind of like aimed at Latino audiences, right? Or just like
It was definitely, it was like set in like a more urban environment.
In LA. It's in
Yeah.
LA.
it was like all Latino cast and
Yeah. And it
I like
sort
that
of
one.
ties back to the plot of 2.
that had a kind of a cool one actually. So here's the cool bit from that one where they sort of like go through these doors and then they actually end up in the first movie and like they retcon it so that some of the noises and scares happening in the first movie are these kids from marked ones like crossing dimensions and like being ghosts in the other dimension or something. Like they're actually, that was kind of a cool thing.
Also, am I misremembering? This might be a different movie, but I thought it isn't Marked Ones the one that there's like a really scary gag where there's something in his eye and he starts like pulling on it. It's like a black
I don't remember that.
thread. Okay, maybe that's
Yeah,
a
I
different
think so.
movie.
I remember that. I have no idea which one it was. Though.
Yeah, I think that's the Marked Ones, and that was terrifying. Ugh.
All right. Next
you
up
go.
from 90s flicks. The 90s get a lot of bad flack for neutering the horror genre. Do you think it was a bad decade for horror? What are some of your faves from that time?
I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately because I've been watching a lot of 90s horror. And I think the part that
Really?
some people forget is that the change in the genre happened because people stopped. Like the boom of horror in the 80s happened because of almost entirely because of the slasher movie. Because of stuff like Halloween, Friday the 13th, just exploding Nightmare on Elm Street in the early part of the decade. That boom created tons of other kinds of horror too. And it's sort of like similar to now, where the boom movies create money for all that other stuff too. All that other stuff we love from the 80s. People stopped, eventually there was an oversaturation in the late 80s and people just stopped going to these slasher movies. And so that kind of bled the money out of the rest of it. So when you did, so there was way less horror made, especially in the early 90s before Scream. But the thing is that when you did get horror movies, they were stuff that was typically outside of the box, like Candyman. Like Candyman is a serious adult horror movie that talks about social issues. It's a movie that never would have been made in the 90s. You get movies like In the Mouth of Madness, and so there's absolutely less breadth of like great genre movies, but there are movies from the 90s that I would put up against anything from other decades. You know what I mean? It just was different. And like, I think people like to just boil it down to like 80s were good horror, 90s were bad horror, but you have to stop and take the business and societal things into kind
But
of
also,
consideration.
Yeah,
Candyman is the 90s, isn't it?
That's my point. That's my point. It's like
Oh, okay.
the kind of stew of the 90s, even though it was things were changing, it allowed movies like Candyman to happen because you didn't get horror. It was sort of like the beginning of them trying to elevate horror. You had stuff like Silence of the Lambs. They were trying to kind of get it out of the perceived like ghetto of the 80s and you know what I mean? Because the other thing that happened was by the late 80s, the MPAA had become so like draconian with their cuts that it made it hard to make a slasher movie that people wanted to see. And if you just watch Friday the 13th, you watch the progression of 6, 7, 8, and there's like almost no blood in part 8 because they were just being hacked to pieces. And so and that continued well into through the 90s really.
I mean, so I haven't spent that much time thinking about this, but I do think too, there's just,
a lot.
They like lost the thread of how to market them. I mean, which is sort of a little bit of what you're saying. Like once they,
but it followed the audience. Like people stopped going to see part 8 of whatever.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, and like once that genre cycle got broken, they couldn't find the next thing fast enough. And I honestly believe like filmmakers, audiences, and the sort of marketers that work at the studios have gotten way smarter about this, and that's where we see the cycles that we talk about it a lot now. But like when you got into the possession cycle, when you had the Paranormal Activity movies, that stuff just like felt more consistent, and it like audiences like got into the habits way faster, and they pick up on those trends, and they like and they just weren't as good at it in the 90s.
Yeah,
So like
or
a lot
like,
of
look,
that stuff fell on deaf ears.
We also, you want
sometimes,
to talk about like unique movies? We just did The Craft, which is a super unique movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the '90s. I feel like it brought about or popularized one of my favorite subgenres of horror, which is like the '90s or early 2000s like teen slasher, which I understand is not everyone's cup of tea, but movies like Urban Legends and Scream and Cry Wolf are like such a phenomenal time capsule that whether they're
Legends,
good or
best.
not is debatable, but like those movies are so formative to a lot of people.
100%, and it's a generational thing, right? Like, because I think what happened is, especially in the early days of the internet, like the people who grew up on 80s horror, I think in some ways felt abandoned by 90s horror or just kind of fell out of it. And then, but we also have to consider that another generation, I grew up on 80s horror, but I was really more of a 90s kid. And so I really was in a formative time, and that's why I love a lot of those 90s movies. And I think it's important for each generation to not just shit on something because it wasn't formative to them. And I think what's happening now is these 90s kids are now old enough to where they're becoming genre writers, and they can actually put on paper why some of these movies are fantastic. You know what I mean? It's different. There was less of it, but there are some like top tier horror movies that came out of the 90s. Like, listen,
we're gonna have to on that. Then
listen, we're gonna have to deal. I've been saying this for a decade on the show, and I'm sure it's already happened. We're gonna have to deal with intellectual think pieces on why Saw is the greatest horror series of all time, even though we lived through it and it was hilariously dumb.
We'll never get there.
Those movies are going to be formative for people. Like, it always changes, is my point. It's always turning over.
We'll see. We'll agree to disagree on that one.
For years I was saying,
whoever writes that piece.
Years I was saying, like, we're all going to have to prepare for the kids who grew up on the prequel Star Wars trilogy writing think pieces about how they're underrated. It's happening literally every day. I see another link. I'm not going to read them because they're dumb, but that's the only series. Those are the only 3 movies where I'm not going to listen to the revisionist bullshit.
Fair.
All right, we're good here, right? Thanks for that '90s flick,
Joe. You gotta filter these, Joe. You gotta know what he's gonna say.
Joe, you didn't have to be here tonight if you didn't want to be.
Wow. I mean, I went upstairs, I made a sandwich, I enjoyed it, and then I came back and you guys were halfway done with whatever that rant was. So, all right, a few more here. Our buddy at Cody Yolo. Who would win in a fight, Black Phillip or the evil Urkel dummy from Family Matters?
Evil Urkel? I don't remember an evil Urkel dummy.
Wasn't there like it was a
Halloween
robot or something, right?
I remember
I was gonna say there was. He did make the robot that
The robot was awesome.
I mean, Black Phillip, right? Like he's got demon Satan powers.
There was a puppet. It was like a ventriloquist dummy.
What about Stefan Urkel?
Stefan dominates. All comers.
Speaking of 90s, very 90s things.
Yeah. Where's that? He's got to be living the good life, right?
I don't know. Let's not talk about it. Next up from @JHer, that's our buddy Jake. Did Eric ever end up watching the Fast and the Furious films? It's all worth it. If only for the amazing rain fight between Jason Statham, The Rock, and Idris Elba at the end of Hobbs and Shaw.
I do like rain fights, and Idris Elba does stir things in me. But if this whole Marvel debacle that we've gone through, Joe, has proven anything to me, it's that if I don't really care, I can't just casually watch through a series I don't give a shit about. Like, I made one of those movies, and I'm like, I'm good.
Can I just say two things, which is that... Can I just say two things, which is that, one, if you have watched all the Fast and Furious movies and you feel like the thing that makes it all worth it is Hobbs and Shaw, what the fuck is wrong with you? And
wow,
second
called
of all,
out.
I don't think he was actually making it.
I think he's just trying to direct this pitch at me with this rain fight thing.
What I was going to say is, Eric, as a person who has become a massive fan of Fast and Furious, I would be happy to curate a watch experience for you that I think would get you hooked on the franchise.
I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate it. But no, thank you. I know my limitations at this point in my life.
I dropped off after like the 9th film or something. Like they're pretty much unwatchable at this point. But Hobbs and Shaw, I mean, you got the fucking Rock. Like that guy can do no wrong. All right, last one. Dear God, let's make it short. If your partner haunted you like an extraordinary, what would they do, and would it bother you?
I'm not getting into this.
No, absolutely not. Oh, this is our buddy, attorney at Space. That's Adam, Space Lawyer.
I'll answer it. My boyfriend would definitely reload the dishwasher passive aggressively as a ghost, and yes, it would annoy the shit out of me.
Oh, people who reload the dishwasher. Come on.
He will literally like stare into the dishwasher while I'm standing next to him and be like, "How do you think a dishwasher works?" And I'm like, "It's funny because you don't live here half the time and everything still gets clean when you're not here."
Does it though?
Wait,
It
you're
does.
saying like he unloads it and then reloads it appropriately?
Correct.
Right way?
Is he one of these
I'm
psychos?
with him on this.
Is he one of these psychos
Yeah,
that,
Leslie
that
does that to me,
organizes
and I
it?
fully appreciate it. Like she's right.
Is he one of these psychos that organizes it as he's putting it in?
Yes.
Okay, no.
Wait, listen, there's a right and a wrong way to load a dishwasher. Like,
John,
they're made to fit certain types of bowls and cups. Like, it's just how it's
Wait,
supposed
just to be clear, John, I don't want you to think I'm like putting all my stuff like bowls face up
Yeah.
so they're gonna fill up with water in like an anarchy mess.
Okay,
I think if you looked
you were not being clear about what.
Okay, I think if most people looked at my dishwasher, they'd be like, "This makes sense to me," and then Jeremy's like, "No, this is wrong. I need to move everything slightly by a quarter of an inch just to make, and also this needs to go up here." And then he'll be like, "Now it's fine."
Yes, that's
I mean,
normal.
if when he rearranges it, do more things fit in there?
No,
Oh, well then
usually
no,
less things fit in when he reorganizes
Oh,
it.
then that's crazy.
Cool.
yeah,
cool.
that's insane.
That's like next level crazy.
Like Leslie does it to me, but it's because she can fit like 9 other plates in there. Like,
Yeah.
Right,
The only time I will reload it is if I am like, if there are dirty dishes and it like needs to be run, and the only way to get the rest of the dishes is to like repack it, then I'll repack it.
Can I tell you,
That's fine.
as
That's fine.
one of the listen, I've been married for not forever, but a while now. You have to identify those things that you just do differently and disagree on, and you need to both learn to just let it go. It's the only way your marriage is going to work, okay? It's the only way.
Yeah, well, there you go.
You cannot be
Marriage.
arguing about the dishwasher for 30 years. It's just not going to go well.
Well, it's also like, what if
You've never met my
Or
parents.
somebody's going to snap
Yeah,
one day and burn the house down.
I just
We're going on
wanted to
13
wait in
years strong,
because
so
I
I don't
felt like all of the married men didn't want to answer the question.
I don't know. I
It's
mean,
not
honestly, I think like my wife would be happy to get away from me. Like, I don't think there would be. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think she would haunt me.
Yeah, I don't know. My
Colleen
wife would
probably
find
spend
some
all
way
of her-
to. Oh God, Casey.
I was gonna say Colleen would probably spend most of her afterlife tormenting me just for the sheer fun of it.
Yeah,
little bit.
it would just be some way of like keeping me up like 30 minutes later than I want to be kept up
Yeah.
every night.
Or
That
like-
would be the thing.
Making me stop touching myself or something.
Joe,
Okay.
last
Now
thing.
it's here she-
Joe, last thing, very quick. Can we update my top 10 list and then we'll wrap it up?
Oh yeah, sure. This is great. Let's do this. All right. Right now you got.
Aren't you drunk? Shouldn't you just be chill right now?
Oh wait, I think I closed your top 10 list. Hang on, let me get it up. Here we go. It's
He's
loading.
got something ridiculous in the top 3, so I
Okay.
can't remember what it was now.
Right now you've got 1 through 5. VFW, Gretel and Hansel, The Invisible Man, Color Out of Space, and Underwater.
I would put this above Color Out of Space and then bump.
Everything down.
Yeah.
I guess.
I feel like there's something else we missed, but we've been doing video for a while, so maybe not.
Yeah. I don't think.
And I didn't like that
The
weird.
Hunt?
I didn't like
Did you
that
want
weird.
The Hunt up?
Oh yeah, I would put the Hunt on there. Just throw it wherever. I'll order it later.
All right, so I'll replace Extraordinary with The Hunt. Got it.
No, this is definitely
Done
better than the
and
Hunt.
Done.
All right, that's gonna do it, guys. I don't know what we're doing next week. We've been doing stuff at home because that's where we
Staff
are.
picks.
Yeah,
Coming back at
maybe
ya.
a staff picks week. Get excited. Check us out if you want to watch the last drive-in with us on Slack. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. That happens every Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern. Don't forget to check out Tweet with BGH with Sophie. All kinds of fun things going on. That's going to do it, guys, for the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Okay, bye now. Go.
Bye bye.